You open the document. You've opened it before. You read the first line, adjust the margins, and close it. Then you tell yourself you're making progress. You haven't started, but you feel like you have, and that's the entire point. I just need a better plan. You've said that sentence more times than you've started anything. And every time you say it, it feels responsible. It feels like the wise thing to do. So you say it again. Tomorrow. What you're doing has a name. Psychologists call it productive procrastination, the act of doing something that feels like progress while quietly guaranteeing that nothing changes. But the standard explanation stops too early. It tells you this is a time management problem. It isn't. This is an identity operation. Planning sustains the identity of someone who is about to change, without the risk of becoming someone who actually has. Think about that for a moment. As long as you're preparing, you're someone with potential, someone who takes things seriously. You're someone who doesn't rush into things carelessly, the way other people do. You've described your planning system to a friend before. You used words like thorough and structured. And the pride you felt in that moment was real. That pride is the mechanism hiding inside competence. It rewards you for the appearance of forward motion. I'm not procrastinating. I'm being thorough. Your brain built something clever. It found a way to collect every emotional reward of progress, safety, identity, self-respect, without ever requiring you to produce a single result. And the scariest part? It doesn't feel like avoidance. It feels like preparation. It feels like the responsible version of you making sure everything is in order. That's why you trust it. And it goes deeper than that. This mechanism doesn't show up once. It runs 3 programs, and each one is harder to see than the last. You have a plan. It's written down. It covers every contingency. But instead of executing it, you improve it. You rewrite the introduction. You add a section. You change the font. And when you close the laptop at midnight, you feel like you accomplished something. You didn't accomplish something. You accomplished not starting, and your brain filed it under productive evening. I just want to get it right. You do. But right is a target that moves every time you get close. That's not a quality standard. That's a defense system. Picture this. You decide to start a project. But first, you need more information. So you read an article, then another. Then a book recommendation pops up, and you save it. Then a podcast episode. Then a course. 3 weeks later, you know more about this topic than most people who are doing it. And you still haven't started. I don't want to waste time doing it wrong. Research, the kind that has no deadline and no defined endpoint, is the quietest form of avoidance you will ever encounter. It looks exactly like diligence. Research suggests that open-ended preparation can itself become a form of avoidance it claims to prevent. And the more you research, the more reasons you find to keep researching. The loop feeds itself. This is the one that hides in plain sight. You tell yourself you'll start when the conditions are right, when you have more time, when the kids are older, when the market is better, when you feel ready. But here's what happens when the conditions arrive. You find a new one. You migrate your entire plan to a new app. You spend 3 hours setting up the workspace, choosing labels, adjusting the color coding. And by the time everything looks perfect, you feel a rush, that fresh start energy, clean and organized and full of possibility. 14 fresh starts. 0 starts. You have been almost ready for years. I'll start when I have everything figured out. You don't actually want a better plan. You want the feeling a better plan gives you, which is the feeling of almost starting, without the risk of having started. So here's the question nobody asks. If planning never leads to action, and you know it never leads to action, why does your brain keep doing it? The obvious answer is fear of failure. You plan to avoid getting it wrong. But that's not what's happening here. You plan to avoid the unknown. A plan that never executes produces the one outcome you can perfectly predict. Nothing changes. And that predictability, that certainty, is what your brain is actually after. You are not afraid of failing. You're afraid of not knowing what happens next. Think about the last time everything was genuinely ready. The plan was solid, the tools were in place, the path was clear. You could feel it in your body before your mind caught up. A tightening in your chest. A pulling back reflex that arrives before your conscious mind invents the reason. And then, like clockwork, you add one more step, one more thing to figure out, one more condition that isn't quite met. That micro-hesitation is the payoff activating. Your brain just chose certainty over possibility. And it made the choice so quickly you didn't even notice it happening. And it didn't feel like avoidance. It felt like being careful. It felt like common sense, like the mature thing to do. Not because you're weak. Because your identity has a contract with predictability, and every unexecuted plan is a deposit in that account. The plan doesn't fail you. It does exactly what your identity hired it to do. So what changes? Not the plan. The plan was never broken. What changes is what you see when you look at it. You've been treating the plan as the thing standing between you and the goal. But the plan was never between you and the goal. The plan was the goal. Not the stated goal, the real one. The one your identity chose for you before you ever sat down to write the first draft. The plan was doing exactly what you needed it to do. It was keeping everything exactly where it was. The shift isn't about doing more. It isn't about starting faster or planning less. There is no 5-step system for this. The mechanism doesn't respond to willpower. It responds to awareness. The shift is noticing. The next time you open that document and reach for the margins instead of the first sentence, you'll feel it. A small pull toward the familiar. A quiet whisper that says, "Not yet." That pull is not a problem to solve. That's the pattern announcing itself. And now you know its name. You don't need a better plan. You just need to see what the current one is for. Remember that document? The one you've opened so many times, the file name auto-completes? It's still there. The plan inside it still works. The plan was never broken. It was doing exactly what you needed it to do. Now you know. If this changed how you see one of your own patterns, subscribe. Every video on this channel exposes another way your identity keeps you stuck and what shifts when you finally see it. And if you recognized yourself in more than one of those 3 patterns, the next video will take you even deeper.